various brands make these things. This particular one happens to be from Oneida. You can get them anywhere. Anywhere that sells kitchen stuff will sell them. They all operate about the same. What it is it's a very, very sharp blade, and on this particular one, it has a dial that you can change the thickness. It'll raise or lower this thing, whether you want them paper thin or thick. They really are a good tool to have in your kitchen. If you don't have one of these, you can just slice the potatoes thin with a knife. But I thought I would show you one. They will all come with a guard. You need to make sure that you use the guard. It has these little prongs in there, and you just put whatever it is that you're slicing. And then as you get down, the guard fits on the little rails. You just start pushing with your finger, and it slices all of your pieces the same thickness. So I'm just going to keep slicing these potatoes up. Let me show you this real quick before I put this on there. You see how it has these little prongs? You can't really see the black, but it has like silver little prongs, and you just put your potato or your carrot or whatever you're slicing on that, and you can adjust your thickness with your dial. It really does do well. You will have a little bit of a thicker end left. You can, if you want, do it down so far and then put your guard on there, but unless you're really adept at stuff, I don't recommend it because you will cut your fingers. That blade is very sharp. This is not a tool I would let children use till they're older, because you really can hurt yourself. And it just makes very quick work of slicing a lot of things, and it makes them all even, so they cook more even. You will have to move your little mandolin around, whoops, as you get further down. You will also need, for this recipe, some sheets of aluminum foil. Golly, got a lot of potatoes going on here. Let's get some spread out. Almost done. You can slice anything with this. Some of them have little interchangeable blades so that you can do julienne slices or wavy cut slices. There's just multiple types on the market, and they're not at all expensive. They're like maybe 10 bucks, 15 bucks, depending on the brand you get. I got a couple of little thick ones here, so I want to just slice those by hand because you want them to be about the same. Now I'm going to put all my potatoes in a bowl. Oops, come on you. And I'm going to add to that some salt, some pepper, and some dried rosemary. And then I'm going to add a little bit of garlic. It makes it taste good. As much or as little as you like. And I'm also going to add 1 onion. That I'm going to slice. You could do it on the mandolin if you wanted to. Just take that outer little thin paper layer off. Get a knife, the proper knife, not a boning knife, and just slice your potatoes or your onion kind of thin. You could use a red onion, you could use a Vidalia onion, you could use scallions, this is just a yellow onion. You could use any kind of onion you want. If you want smaller pieces, you can cut it into smaller pieces. It's up to you, however you want them. If you don't want to put the onion in, don't put the onion in. It's perfectly fine. You do whatever you like. I have one child that doesn't like onions in his, and then one that does. Mike and I do. So sometimes what I will do is customize it a little bit. Gonna add some olive oil to that. Got my oven preheated to 400 degrees, 375, 400. Now, if you've got some that doesn't like the onions, make a packet without any onions in it. So take some of the potatoes, place it in the center of your foil. You can fold it up any which way that you like. I sometimes like to do it long ways so they're not as thick in there. They cook a little quicker. Just fold them up. Then add the onion to the rest. Mix it all together. These are also great to do on a grill. Maybe you're grilling something. You can make this potato dish and put the packets just straight on the grill. That's fine too. So just take your potatoes, just a few of them in each packet. You could add a little butter to it if you wanted to. You could add any kind of seasoning that you like. Whatever you like is fine. But the less you put in there, the quicker they're going to cook. If you pile them all into one packet, it's just going to take a long time to cook. You could also, if you were doing a crock pot meal, whatever you're cooking in the bottom of your crock pot, just lay these on the top of the dish and let it cook along with your meal. That would be fun too. Okay, let me see, I got two more, so. It's very easy to do, and they're really good. I've done this for years. Sometimes I'll do this and just use a pack of that, the dried onion soup mix. You can use those too. That's delicious also. However you want to do it. Let's see if I can squeeze one more. I think I can. So we'll put the remainder of this onto this sheet. And we will pop that in a 400-degree oven for about 25 minutes or so. I'm going to clean up my mess, and when I come back, I'm going to show you how to make the spice mixture for the catfish. I'll be back in just a minute. All right, now our hobo packs, our potato packets are in the oven, and they're going to bake 20, 25 minutes, just until they're tender. I have here, we're going to make a Cajun flavored or blackened catfish. I'm not going to fry it in the skillet. This is an oven-baked Cajun flavored catfish. It's a lot less messy, but if you wanted to fry this in a skillet, you could do that too. Now, I'm using catfish, but you could use red snapper, you could use tilapia, you could use any kind of a white fish. I probably would not do this to like tuna or something like that, but flounder or catfish or snapper, sea bass, anything like that will work. Whatever kind of fish your family likes. Now I have here 5 catfish fillets that I'm going to drizzle with just a tiny bit of olive oil because I did not oil my pan because I'm placing it on some, parchment paper. I'll get it in a second. I need to brush that a little bit. There's a pastry brush. I'm just going to kind of, I'm dealing with allergies, forgive me. Just kind of brush that oil all over the fish fillet. Now my children love fish. My husband loves fish. So this is, you know, one of the things that would go over real well in my house. I'm going to sprinkle it with just a little bit of salt, probably about 1/8 of a teaspoon per fillet. Fish is very, you know, different fishes taste different. Some are much milder, some are much stronger. It just depends on the fish. Now here's where we're going to make our own spice blend. I have here just some chili pepper, some cumin, some seasoning salt, some onion powder, some dried oregano that I'm going to put in my hands and kind of bloom that flavor. I personally like the Greek oregano, but you use whatever you have. Some black pepper. This is a spicy dish. Excuse me. This is a spicy dish. Now, I did not have any of the just crushed red pepper, the powdered kind. So I am using just some red pepper flakes because I didn't have any. So if you have the powdered kind, you can use that. If not, just use red pepper flakes. Stir that all together. Oh my goodness, my voice is not wanting to cooperate today. It's that time of year. It's allergy season. And then you want to sprinkle some of this over each fillet. Now, if you've got maybe a child or someone who does not like spicier foods, you could leave one of your fillets or two of them, however you wanted to do it, without any spice on it. I've actually got a couple of little ones that I'm going to be feeding today that might not like this heat. So let's see what we can find to put on theirs. I didn't plan this ahead, so let's see what we got. Oh, I have a lemon. That'll work. Actually, I'll grab both of them because lemon is really good on fish. So if you need to, you know, maybe do one without as much or no none of the, got to get my thoughts together here, spice mixture, what you can do is either use a commercial lemon pepper or just sprinkle a little bit of pepper, little bit, not too spicy, with some lemon over it. And there you go. You can customize. That's the great thing about when you're baking something like this, or like the potatoes. If you need to customize it, it's perfectly fun. Now, I will drizzle with just a tiny bit more olive oil. I won't need to brush that over. I just want those spices to bloom under the olive oil. I'm going to put this in the 400-degree oven with the potato packets. Excuse me. This will take about probably 18 to 20 minutes. I'll show you how to test to see if it's done. Fish will flake when it's through, and I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to pop this in the oven. Tell you what, I'm just going to clean this mess up, get something hot for my throat, and when I come back, we're going to make a homemade biscuit. I'll be back in just a minute. Alrighty, now we're going to make a peppery cheese biscuit to go alongside our catfish and potatoes, which are in the oven. This actually goes in the oven, so you don't even need your stovetop for this meal, which is great. Now in this bowl, I have 4 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons of baking powder, about half a teaspoon of salt, and I just want to whisk all that together. Just use a fork. Then I've got a couple of tablespoons of butter that I have cut into cubes. And then I have some shortening. Let's see, I've got about half a cup of shortening. You could use all butter if you wanted, but the shortening adds a little bit of a flakiness that you don't get with the butter. I cut it into cubes, and then you can use a pastry cutter like this to cut in the butter and the shortening. If you don't have one of these tools, you could use your fingers and just pinch it together like this. Either one works. You could use 2 forks, 2 knives. There's 1,000 different ways to do this. Something just dropped. Let me see what that was. Oh, the whisk. That's okay. You want it to resemble kind of like coarse sand. You really just, the point of this is you don't want to see big chunks of butter or shortening. And then at the end, sometimes I like to take my hands and then do this. What that does is that creates long ribbons of the butter and the shortening, which creates like these little pockets in the dough, and it really helps to make them very flaky. So you can do it either way. I mean, this is a hands-on job. That's just all there is to it. Now, this is a peppery cheddar biscuit, so I've got 2 tablespoons of black, coarsely ground black pepper. Okay. I also have a 1.5 cups of cheddar cheese that I want to stir in. Just use your hands for this. Clean hands are truly an essential tool. Now you want to make a well in the middle. And I have here a 1.5 cups. I'm using 2% milk, but you could use whatever you have on hand. Now here is where, honestly, it really depends on the humidity in the room. You may need to add a little more milk. You may need to add a little more flour, but I'll show you the consistency that you're looking for. I like to just take a fork and stir it all together, and then get in there with your hands. I think we're going to be okay. Now, I want to put a little bit of all-purpose flour. Did I mention it's all-purpose flour? It is all-purpose flour in the dough. I want to spread that out, and then I'm going to take all of my dough and put it on my board. And I'm going to stir it together, or kind of knead it with my hands to get all that flour worked in about 8 or 10 times. Just take it, push it toward the center. Take one end, push it toward the center. And I like to let this set, you can refrigerate it if you want to, for about 5 minutes or so. What happens is the flour hydrates with the liquid from the milk. If you wanted to use half and half, you could. If you wanted to use heavy cream, you could. Any of those would be fine. Now, what you want to do is cut it in half. Put half of it in your bowl. And then pat it out or roll it out to a square. You can use your handy dandy little bench scraper to kind of help you stay in shape. This is actually, you know, I use it a lot for moving vegetables, but this is actually a baker's tool. It's a bench scraper. You want these to be about 1 inch thick. Okay. And you want it to be approximately, I don't know, an 8 or so inch, 6 to 8 inch square or rectangle is fine. All right. Now, neaten up your edges. Roll it just a tiny bit more. This is a way of making biscuits that you don't have scraps. Take a knife or your bench scraper. If you don't have one of these, you can use a knife. Excuse me. And we're going to cut them into, I like big biscuits. You could make them as small or as big as you wanted. Okay? And then move them onto the baking sheet. You could cut them in half again. They are kind of big. We could go ahead and cut them in half. That one does not want to stay together. Come on, you. Cut them in any shape you want. If you do the squares like this or rectangles or whatever you're doing, you don't have to re-roll the scraps, which makes life much easier when making biscuits. Okay? You're going to do the same thing to the other tray. Alrighty, now everything is done, and I want to show you, I've already had some nibblers on the fish, but I want to show you how to tell when fish is done. So, I mean, obviously by looking at it, you can't tell, but what you want to do is take a fork, go into the thickest part of the fish. You see how that's flaky and popping up like that? That tells you the fish is done. Fish is done when it flakes, when a fork is inserted. And in this particular case, you see how white that is? That tells me that it's done. Now, obviously, like a salmon or a pinky colored fish, you would not be able to use that test on. But there's how you tell when your fish is done. So here is our completed meal. Now, all I did to the biscuits was brush on some, I beat an egg with some water and brush that on the top, and I let them bake. And you see how by folding that dough over, let me just get one here that's not the pretty plate for TV. And you see how it just flakes. You've got lots of little flaky layers in there. That's from the butter. Remember how we cut that in and then we took our hands and we made the long ribbons of butter? Well, that's what that does. And the gooey melted cheese in there, so good. Those are delicious. They're hot. I mean, they've got a lot of pepper in it. If you don't want that much pepper, you can cut them back. But you know, if you've watched this program much at all, you know that I really like pepper. Now, our potato packets, the only piece of advice I have for that is when you open the foil, all right, be careful because you're going to have a lot of steam coming out of there. So be very, very careful. You see how the steam just pops up? You want to let that out of the packet before you, you know, let anybody dive into it, especially kids. Make sure you open that up and then put it on your plate. You could garnish that with some parsley if you wanted to. Fish and lemon are a match made in heaven. So you want to take a little bit of lemon if you have some and squeeze over it. It just is a natural pairing. But there is a quick and easy and, you know, really relatively inexpensive. Catfish is not expensive at the grocery stores. And, you know, we pretty much all have potatoes on hand and flour and cheddar cheese on hand. So you could make this dish with pantry staples. And it's absolutely delicious. Your family's going to love it. I baked my fish, but you could also pan fry it if you wanted to. I would say if you're going to pan fry it, I would go maybe 4 minutes on each side and then test with a fork to make sure that it is, you know, done and cooked all the way through. There's some recipes for you. Try them. Let me know what you think. And I'm going to be working on some more fish recipes. I know I get a lot of requests for fish recipes. I think out of pretty much everything, I think fish is the one protein that people are confused how to cook. So we're going to be doing some more fish recipes for you. Thank you for joining with me, and I will see you next time on Everyday Manna.
Living Faith Television is a viewer-supported television network that's seen in more than 1.6 million homes. With such a broad outreach, unhindered by walls or prison gates, untold numbers of souls have been saved and many lives shaped and changed over the years through Living Faith's Christian programming.
Thank you, partners. It is because of you that